Hi everyone. Today with us we have John Pritchard, who's the founder of Pala Eyewear, a B Corp company, and we're really happy to have you here, John.
Thank you very much.
John, could you shortly present yourself and your company? What are you doing to change the world?
Yeah, sure. So I began Pala about 6 years ago. It's an eyewear company. I essentially launched it as a solution to a social issue. So when I'd been traveling to Africa in my earlier years, I had a wonderful kind of connection to the countries that I'd visited and the people, the cultures. But I also learned about the issue behind eye care, and 10% of the world's population can't access eye care. And in Africa in particular, this is even far higher in terms of percentages of population. And yet the realization that a pair of spectacles was one of the most cost-effective poverty alleviating tools that you can give someone. That was a little nugget in my head that I took away. And I just felt that, you work in the corporate world for quite a long time, and which was great. I had a lovely job at Microsoft before this, working in branding and marketing. But ultimately, it didn't give me all the purpose I wanted from my career stroke life. And so I guess fueled with that little seed of, or that recognition of this simple thing of glasses, I actually started my first conversation with a charity. I work with Vision Aid overseas here in the UK, and I said to them, look, I want to start a company. I want to deliver eye care change in Africa. I want this to be grant money. I want it to be transparent. I don't want it to go into charity pots and get sort of divvied up around different parts of the charity. I want to be able to say we have delivered change. So that was a starting point. They were very happy because they were going to get money for not having to do too much. I had to then go off and think of a company to start. And I took the marketing 101. I thought, well, I'll go and create an eyewear brand to deliver eye care, and fully fueled it with the knowledge I had no experience in fashion or eyewear. So I had to start learning the process quite quickly and networking and finding people far more skilled and knowledgeable than me to get involved. So that's how we started. It was basically founded on this premise of selling sunglasses and using sales from that sunglasses to create change in across different countries in Africa. I think we're up to around £44,000 so far we provided in grants to those projects. And then if we sort of extrapolate that out across other parts of the business, I've always tried to look through this lens of social impact and minimizing our environmental impact. So if you look at our cases, I haven't got an example here, but our cases are made from recycled plastic waste and water sachets in Ghana. We work with 4 female weaving communities in Bolgatanga in northeast Ghana to make those. And again, this is a community that's been certainly in the last 2 or 3 years suffered from quite poor climate issues, a lot of drought. They're normally quite historically a farming community, but the crop is less reliable year on year. And so actually weaving takes on a far more important need for them, and particularly by using plastic, because again, they would normally use straw, but that straw has shifted further south down country. So for the women if they want their natural straw, they had to travel a couple of hours on a bus to collect it, and then exposed to the dangers of a female collecting straw out in the bush. So but actually plastic is my supplier, or the NGO that I work with. He says plastic fantastic, because for him plastic is a solution to these communities, and it ensures they don't have to move to relocate sort of as the drought is pushing the materials further south. So that's sort of the two sort of social impacts is the communities there and the beneficiaries of the eye care projects we've invested into. And then materially, we've always tried to take small steps in getting better with our eyewear. So when I first launched, obviously sunglasses, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Sunglasses here and this kind of stuff. But then materially we've improved, and with our lenses we've improved. So we do use bioacetate, which I think is the best material we can be using in market right now. It's not 100% plant-based. It's predominantly plant-based, around 68%, and is biodegradable as well. I will add, in the right conditions, because people, very, very aware of greenwashing, and people say, oh, biodegradable, we're going to stick it in their compost and expect it to disappear in 100 days. It doesn't quite work like that. It has to be in the right compostable, industrial compostable conditions. So Yeah, I guess every touch point of the brand, I've tried to have a story behind it or an impact behind it. And yeah, roll forward about 5 years, 5.5 years, and here we are today having a conversation with you. We were B Corp last year, so last December, coming up to our, actually I think this could actually be our anniversary today, so we might be 1 year old today.
So we can also celebrate the anniversary of Pala Eyewear today. Why, John, you decided to use eyewear as a tool for change and for supporting these communities also in Africa?
I think for me, it's what I wanted to do was try and create something that made it as easy as possible to have an impact. I think, I don't know if it's the same in Italy, but in the UK, people would rattle charity boxes around the high streets and trying to get you to sign up for charity. That's a very hard thing to do. But so what I wanted to do was set up a brand or eyewear whereby actually find something you really, find a pair of sunglasses you really like, and we'll take care of all the kind of the impact work. And we can tell you how, what you've done. Again, that's a very important part of our transparency, is having videos and photography, telling the story of the impact. So yeah, it was essentially to deliver the message as simply as possible, but let people come on board and interact. The only thing they have to do is buy a pair of sunglasses to have all the benefits that roll off the back.
So we may say that the sunglasses are the tool to have this impact. It's like a way to communicate effectively and easily to people and to empower them to make something happen with a simple action, just buying sunglasses.
Yeah, because like it or not, people, again, I don't know how this compares with Italy, but there's still a long way to go for people to stop talking the talk and walking the walk and actually buying sustainably. So people are still buying with their eyes, they're still just buying the best discounted or the brand they think's the coolest, all this kind of stuff. And the sustainable thing is nice to know that it kinds to be, it's like almost like after the purchase. It's like, oh, I've done this, that, and the other. Clearly, we have people coming through the website who are sustainably minded and coming to us because they want to buy a product that they know is ethically sourced and has all the good bits attached to it. But I would still say the vast majority of people shopping are still quite a long way from that sort of from that purchase behaviour. But it will come in time, and I think especially the last year to 18 months. In fact, lockdown, I think, has been quite a good passage of time for people to reflect on their consumption habits. And I think we've seen a number of ethical or sustainably minded brands benefit as a result.
You have decided to become a B Corp. Why have you made such a decision, and when you have decided to become a B Corp?
So yeah, I guess it was at the beginning of lockdown, and I thought I'd start the process of going through the assessment because I thought there'd be quite a lot of time on my hands with the lockdown and all my wholesalers not opening. So I thought, well, let's use up the time there. So, but in terms of why I actually wanted to become a B Corp, it kind of just felt like it was solidifying our direction of travel anyway. I set the business up with purpose at the heart of it, and very much people and planet at the front of my mindset. So for me, the B Corp certification stood out as the certification that kind of rewarded us for what we were trying to do. There's lots of other certifications out there, but they're all very specific to a specific part, vegan or fair trade, all this kind of stuff. Whereas I think the B Corp certification is far more broader, and I think that benefits. And it's not black and white with B Corp. If you're not doing well in a particular area, you're not struck off. You lose points, but you can be doing well in other areas, and it's about balance and fairness. And I think for me that really appealed as well, because certainly going through the assessment, when you're looking at all the questions, you can it's a carrot and stick. You can see what you're doing well, but there's a stick for you to make sure that when you get reassessed, that you've got some measures in place to improve your score going forward.
How would you say that being a purpose-driven company affects your business, your way of taking a decision, your way of having your impact and working?
I think when you put people and planet at the sort of the forefront of your decision making, and this almost rolls out into your supply chain, all kinds of stuff. You make all these decisions. Invariably, it means your profit is going to suffer, because the decisions aren't the cheapest decisions by any stretch. We're still not profitable. We're 5 years in. I'm quite happy to say on record. we're still not profitable. We're closing the gap, but what I wanted to do was make the right decisions right from the start. And so it just means that getting those margins that other brands that perhaps aren't so sustainably minded can make, because they are doing things at a far cheaper cost, etc. Well, that's not something I set up to do. So it just means it's a long, or the journey to profitability, at least for us, but I sense it speaking to others in the community, it's the same kind of thing, is slower. We're more mindful of our sourcing. Even last year when we moved our production to Italy, they were supplying us with, so our frames come over from Italy to the UK. And I noticed the individual bags that the frames are packaged in were made of normal, terrible plastic. So I sourced some plastic bags for them made from cornstarch. And so now they use that. And I said, you're welcome to use that for other sunglass companies that you supply to. Just putting that little seed into their minds to try and think a bit more sustainably about how they're operating as a manufacturer too. But that cost me money to get them some, 5,000 cornstarch bags, etc. And so, but I felt it was a necessary part I guess this is what the B Corp does. It's always, you've got a little angel on your shoulder, angel, devil, angel.
Yeah, let's try to think on that.
Is this the right decision to make? And so, literally, whenever I make a decision, or we as a business make a decision, it's always through that. It's almost, you've got a B Corp filter now going through your mind every time.
B Corp filter, I like that. It's more like an Instagram filter that tries to make you see things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What I saw so far, speaking with many B Corps in fashion, they all say that it's like a roadmap, and you get let's say the line to follow. You are somehow someone who's helping you to follow the right roadmap. So that was one of the major reasons why many companies started and decided to become B Corp. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, 100%. It was the BIA, the assessments. It took probably 4 months. Again, it's just me, so I don't have a team of people doing my assessment, so it was just me. But fortunately, again, the lovely thing for the B Corp community is that I met a number of B leaders through my network who were happy to kind of have a look in there. And in fact, so I worked with one of the teams from another B Corp. She had actually done their B Corp assessment, and they lived near me, quite close down here in Brighton. So once a month we'd get together and she'd run through. And really, what was really helpful was she would interpret the question. For me, I sort of see a question on there and think, right, that must be the answer. And she says, well, actually, no, what are they really looking for in that answer? What are they trying to measure? And it's that kind of detail that I was kind of not very good at. And then you realize, what they're asking for. And it's measurement, and it's ensuring that that you've got the transparency and you've got the documentation and all the stuff to prove it. It's all very well saying stuff, but you've got to prove it. So yeah, it was quite a long. It's quite a long process in terms of 3 or 4 months, but it was actually the community reached out, and I reached out to the community to make it a lot more enjoyable. Let's say, because it's a lot of spreadsheets involved, a lot of documents, but also going to your point, it identified points that I hadn't even thought of within my business. It's me. My business is 2 full-time employees, a couple of part-time employees, for example. But I never had a hazardous waste policy because I work from home and I work from an office and sort of hot desk there kind of thing. But I can still have a hazardous waste policy. I've still got laptops and batteries that I have to dispose of, so I now have a hazardous waste policy. So it's that kind of detail which again you don't really ever think of perhaps when you start the program or the project or the BIA, and then you realise, oh God, no, I never even thought about that. So it's great that it makes you think about parts of the business, and I say because we're only a 2-person business, so we haven't done the kind of the bigger. There's a whole section of the BIA that we're not involved in yet. But when I think 3 or more people, then we will have a whole bunch more other questions about treatment of employees, that kind of thing, which I'm actually looking forward to because I think I'll get some more points.
You said also a key point. I think that's measurement, transparency to prove what you are saying, because at the end, why do you get a certification, why you're doing what you're doing, and how you can communicate that. Maybe that's one of the major way to do that. So through data, through measurement. And what's your process and your commitment to traceability and transparency as a company at PAL Eyewear?
So again, what B Corp has done, it's ensured that we have a lot more documentation, and it's a huge tip to anyone who's starting the process is literally record everything you ever do, and you'll realize how useful that is. Even for example, when it comes down to employee relations, so how I treat workers, so the weavers, how do we communicate, and we have WhatsApp calls. Have you recorded a WhatsApp call so that you can show us how, all that kind of stuff you don't even think of really. But sorry, I've digressed. What was the main question again? Sorry. What's
the role of traceability and transparency in your business? How do you communicate that to your customer? What's the story? Let's say you are when you're selling the pair of eyewear.
Absolutely. Look, for me, I really genuinely think that the transparency has to be, you've got to show what you're doing. Words, it's like all things. Words. There's what's that thing? Words and pictures. Pictures speak a lot. Oh, I can't remember the thing. There's a. Anyway, we'll scrub that. But yeah, I think when you show or demonstrate what you are doing, rather than just saying it, then that really connects people to your work. So if you go to our Vimeo page, we've got videos from where we've been to Zambia, showing the outreach program and various people that benefited from the eye care there and how that will improve their livelihoods, because statistically the chances of better income through employment is great, and obviously for kids as well, being able to read the blackboard or reading a book, that's also key. So we've got that. We've got videos of showing how our tastes are made, and the weavers, showing where the weavers live and work and how they weave as a community. I think we talked before this call that you may have just seen a recent video of our production in Italy, again showing how the product is made, because all these different aspects really for us are key in getting people to understand what we stand for, i.e. being great quality product, but also our impact for eye care, our impact on the weavers. And in fact, there's a short film we've done as well, which talks about the issue of climate change and how that's affecting the weavers. And there's a nice story there. I recommend people to watch that one. So for us, that's our kind of our transparency bit. We obviously at different parts of our website, for example, we communicate that, and at point of sale, we communicate some of these pieces too. So I think for us, it's very much, it's our marketing really. We're a tiny brand. We don't have the budgets of big sunglass brands to go out there and buy lots of media or Facebook or AdWords or whatever it is to promote ourselves. So actually we're better off having some really strong assets which talk our story and hope that people share those stories with each other.
What would you say is some of the feedback you have appreciated the most from your customers? Which is the value, do you think, the attribute do you think that they value the most?
It's really interesting. We do get some, a lot of people, it's just a very short sometimes message saying, look, we just love the story, which is great, because that's our differentiator. Sunglasses are a finite product. You can't sort of come out with a new frame that's never been done before. So we're never going to be able to differentiate ourselves in terms of producing a frame that's never been done. We can have our own identity, but it's going to be close to a lot of other brand identities. So that's an important aspect from that point of view.
So we are getting to the final questions. I would like to ask you, first of all, why do you think that other fashion companies should become B Corp, and why? And then I want to ask you the best practices, 3 best practices you would like to share with other companies.
Sure. In terms of why other fashion companies, look, this comes from two ways really. One is that we need to kind of find a way to end in fast fashion practices, and by virtue of becoming a B Corp, that will happen. People will have to change the way they do or source and use their workers. So I think for one, just by doing that, it will give your brand a lot more credibility in the space, and it will put pressure on the other bigger brands that perhaps aren't too bothered about fast fashion and low income wages, etc. It'll put pressure on them to have to make changes. Always big big fan of grassroots kind of causing change, upper change. It needs government change. It needs incentives for brands like us to keep pushing and knocking on the door and disincentivize the big companies that are using poor supply chains. And equally, I think the important thing about B Corp, whilst I think in the US the journey has been a lot longer. I think it started in 2005 or 2006. I can't remember the year it started. But with the likes of Patagonia, so people in the US, for example, are a lot more familiar with the whole B Corp branding. A lot less. I don't know what it's like in Italy. Actually, what is the kind of level of understanding from a consumer point of view for B Corp?
We had Nativa, which was the first B Corp supporting at a European level the implementation of a law for making benefit corporation possible. But still, if there are many B Corps, there's really low understanding from people. It's like something from the industry. So only people from the industry know what B Corp certification means, but people would not recognize this certification as a key differentiation factor yet, and there's a lot of work to do on that point, I think.
So that's my point. So in the UK, in the B2B world, there is a growing familiarity of recognizing other B Corps, but in the B2C world and consumer world, we've got the B Corp logo on our boxes and our swing tags, etc. But to a consumer, I suspect it probably doesn't mean anything. But my great theory is that the more that, the UK market is the fastest growing B Corp market. Or last year it was, this year, it has been. And the more brands, services, products that become B Corps, the more that people are going to see this symbol across their everyday life. And so at some point, there'll be a tipping point where people will, well, what does this mean? Oh, right, it means this. And then all of a sudden, there's an understanding that this label actually helps you make a decision on what you're going to buy. And you'd hope that people think, right, okay, this is great. This is what I've been looking for. It's like the food colour in the UK. It's like having these colours on your food labelling to help you decide, the kind of the quality of the food that you're eating. The same with products and services. And I think once we get to a critical mass of companies using B Corp level, then we'll see this tipping point when we see a lot of people engaging with it and then saying, okay, that's easy, right? I can go to this shop and buy these shoes from these three brands because they're B Corps, or I'm looking for an insurance company. There's 3 companies here that are B Corps. So that's what I hope. And I think it will just take time. I say the US is further ahead, and it was notable when we became B Corp that we had a little spike in US traffic shortly after. So I think, again, it just indicates that the US consumer is more switched on because they've been doing it for longer. And this is the same for us. It'll be the same for you, I think, in the years ahead. I think it'll be more accelerated than the US. I think it's because of everything else that's going on. I think this is the perfect timing for the B Corp movement. So I think we'd hope to see in the next 2 to 3 years quite a change in consumer behavior. There was a second question there, wasn't there, which was about
best practices you want to share with other fashion and accessories and footwear company, whatever you like. So what have you learned? What do you think you are doing really well and you want to share?
It's a good question. Look, best practice for me, we'll go back to transparency. We talk about what we're doing well, but we'll also say what we're not doing well and where we think there's gaps in our product or our offering. There's no point in saying anything otherwise. So that always helps. And I think as long as you say on your website how we're doing it and what we're doing it, but where we're also going, or we've asked people that if you have seen or heard of something better, let us know and we'll look at it ourselves. So transparency goes for everything. And sort of tied into this, we made a decision a year or so ago to just do seasonless collections. So we're no longer seasonal. Next year, we won't be launching 12 new frames going into next season. We're going to have an always on collection. So I guess in eyewear it's slightly different, but if you look at the sort of fashion industry of old, they may have 6 or 7 fashion shows, fashion shows a year. I think they've got it down to 2 seasons now, but again, better for the planet arguably would be seasonless clothes that you can wear all year round. Whether it's year 2021, year 2025, that piece is still going to stand the test of time, and that ultimately is better for the planet here in that sense. And then you see, I think, again, something we're looking at, we're trying to do better. We do have a recycle scheme, not of our own, because it's quite hard in eyewear to do a fully circular model. We work with TerraCycle. So, for example, if we send out a pair of sunglasses to our customers, it's only UK based, I have that at the moment, but they can return any old 3 frames back to us. Those then go on to TerraCycle, where they get broken down. Metal parts get made up into nuts and bolts, and the plastic parts get made up into road cones, watering cans, and other weird plastic things. So it's not circular in red. It doesn't come back into our system. There is developments in that space, which is quite interesting. I've seen a company that have done it with lenses from recycling lenses back into frames. But outside of my industry, I think one of the brands I admire a lot here in the UK is called Finisterre, and they've done a sort of they're known for their wetsuits and their sort of surf culture. But they've done a fabric use up well, it's not even a campaign, it's a project now to make wetsuits from old wetsuits. So again, this sort of circular model, I think, is really progressive. It's not easy. It never is when you're trying to be a sustainable brand. It's never, the solutions aren't easy.
Not easy at all.
But then it is this collaborative nature of the Beehive, the B Corp community, where we've got more brains, more heads coming together every month, where people can connect or might know someone that can help with that solution. There's no point in us all being individuals trying to conquer these solutions on our own. It's definitely a case of the more the merrier, and we'll get more done that way. So I've ended on a positive. But yeah, that's probably my answer to that.
I love the fact, and I think that's extremely important, that you try to follow the demand, answer the demand, and not creating it. As you said, you have just one collection, because that way you're answering a demand and you're not only pushing with new models and also taking them back for recycling them. So I take care of your product. I'm not just selling you something to use it, but I'm selling you something to reuse it and try to give on. So I think that's really good practice.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that actually. So one of the moves to Italy was that we had far better control of our minimum orders, which obviously can be an issue. We worked with an ethically audited factory in China previously, but your minimums are a lot higher. So the great thing is now we can produce as little as 40 pieces of a particular style or particular colorway. So we have far better control of our stock, and we'll only produce what we need. So we're not going to have a warehouse full of sunglasses waiting to be sold or hoping to be sold. We'll produce to the demand of what our customers are looking for, and if we see something going really strong, we can go to the factory and say, right, we need another 50 or 100 of those. So we've kind of hopefully turned that on its head, and I guess the nirvana for us will be we sort of have almost like a pre-order system, so that we'll say, look, in July we're going to release 100 of these frames all on pre-order, and then hope that they sell through, and then we know exactly what we're producing. All those customers that pre-ordered will be happy when they come, and then we can use the data and intel to say, okay, that worked really well, we'll do something maybe a different colorway or whatever, and yeah, that's to me is a model that I think you can only do as a small business right now. It seems to work really well, but I think it'll be interesting to see where we get in a couple of years working that model and really just working to the demand of our customers, as opposed to pushing demand or supply onto demand and turning it on its head.
I think that on that point, the new brands have somehow more power to implement these new practices, and the model of pre-orders. Another B Corp in Italy working on circular fashion, which is called Refo, said actually the same thing, and it's an industry shift that is going on step by step, but absolutely I think that's one of the most important best practice to keep in mind. And now the tough question for you, because I'd like to ask you the 3 things you have learned to avoid becoming a B Corp. We understand that there are really good practice we can share, but also that this process is a learning journey, and there are things that we learn are not good anymore, so we try to avoid them. Which have been your 3 things to avoid?
Sorry, is this with reference to the... Well, actually, no, I'll tell you what it is. So one of the things would be, for example, something I've really talked about already, but it is documenting what we do. And we came up with... I'm a creatively minded person. I'm not very organized. So I'm not very good at doing structured stuff and documenting stuff. And I think that was a bit of a failing for me in terms of going through the B Corp process, realizing just how many gaps I had. Even though I had the information, I hadn't bothered to actually kind of document it. So you're having to kind of retrospectively have to go through a lot of detail and that kind of stuff, which was quite a painful process. So anyone's got a brain like mine, likes to think a lot and sort of daydream, then probably just get a good spreadsheet out right from the start and document it, because we definitely struggled on that side of it. But also on that sort of point is when making changes, make sure that you kind of future-proof changes. Don't jump into an idea or a material or a product that won't be future-proofed later on down the line. So that's it's all the decisions I've made as a business have been very small. We made small and often. I can't remember the actual expression I used, but small changes rather than just doing these big changes. If I'd made some of those big changes right at the start of the business, then I don't think I'd have a business now, because I'd have gone too far down a route where I'd be beyond the point of return, and I could have spent a lot of money doing something wrong. But fortunately, we've only ever made these sort of small jumps. We've never put pressure on ourselves to be right, to be perfect from the start, because I think you'd never launch a business if you did that. You'd just be too worried about ticking so many of the different boxes. It goes back to the whole transparency thing as well. So if you're transparent about it and saying, well, this is where we're at, this is where we're going to be doing better, this is how we plan for the future. And that's why the BIA is so good, because you can plan for the future. That is your go-to document for saying, right, okay, this is what came up, this is what my score was last time, these are the areas I could do better with. So I'm not sure that was actually answering your question on that particular.
I think yes, and I really appreciated the concept of future-proof what you are doing. So it's not only about innovating, but it's also to try to find a way to future-proof what you're doing and to prove its impact and monitor progress and keep going. But somehow being aware that at a certain point you may change your way. So it's not you have to future-proof it. So
you have to future-proof it, and also just keep things simple. I am prone to getting too excited about too many things at any one time, and you try and do too many things. Just do the good things you do really well. Keep that simple, and then take stuff on only when you've got the capacity to do that. Again, this might be sort of more symptomatic of a small business and a fewer people in the business, and I want to be doing everything at once, but I can't do everything at once, and you're better off doing a few good things well rather than stretching yourself thinly and not executing on those positive things you want to make, but you're not executing on that particularly well. I'd rather do it all well and just do a few.
Great. I really like that point. And thank you, John, really sharing all your experience and what your Palaware company is doing, because I think we're going all to appreciate that.
Lovely. Well, it's refreshing having a nice conversation. It feels like a bit of therapy. I feel like I'm sat on the couch. I've got it all off my body, but no, lovely. Very nice to chat. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you.